Hey guys, and welcome back to The Outer Rim. I'm Gabe Green, and today, with the help of a fellow Star Wars nut, we'll be talking about the latest episode of The Bad Batch. And this week, I am joined by Michael Hoover from A Certain Point of View podcast. What's up, man?
Not much. How you doing, man?
I'm doing all right. Good to have you back. We had you back on Mando Season 2, and now we are on The Bad Batch.
Great to be back, man. It's fun.
Yeah, and one quick thing. If you want to just listen to the audio rather than watch the video for this review, you can find all of that at the Franchise Fatigue podcast feed. The audio for every episode review will be there. I finally remembered to say that at the front rather than at the end. This week we're going to be talking about episode 6, which is Decommissioned. This one was written by Amanda Rose Munoz and directed by Nathaniel Villanueva. And as far as some of the casting, Matthew Wood pops back in to voice some battle droids, which is always welcome. And Bridget Calley and Elizabeth Rodriguez return from the Clone Wars to voice Trace and Rafa Martez, respectively. So in this one, the Bad Batch goes on another mission for Sid. This time they go to salvage a tactical droid's head from a battle droid reclamation site on Corellia. But the job is complicated by the interference of rival mercenaries, and shenanigans ensue. But before we talk about this episode specifically, Michael, let's talk about what have your thoughts been so far in the first 6 episodes of this show?
Dude, I love it. This show, I didn't have a whole lot of expectations for it, to be honest with you. I really loved the first arc of season 7, the Bad Batch arc of the Clone Wars. But I always thought it was just like a huge ball of fun. It's just like this wacky 80s and 90s action movie kind of a thing where you have these really exaggerated archetypes, character archetypes, and really fun. I enjoyed the whole thing. It was super fun for me. But I was like, when I heard about the announcement, I was like, how are they going to do an interesting show on these characters? I'm very interested in this. But from the very beginning, it has been a really great ride for me. I think it's been darker than I expected, which is nice. I think they're going places I didn't see coming. I think the whole transition from the Republic to the Empire has been fascinating. And we're very similar in this way. I know that, but like, I really enjoy just having this sort of a formula where they have every week is a new Star Wars adventure on a new place, on a new planet. And each week kind of brings the story along just a little bit, but there's a lot of character growth through the whole thing as well. I don't feel like this has been a bunch of filler episodes. Don't get me started on that. But like, I really love it, man. I think this is pretty much everything I expected, or more than I expected, to be honest. It's got a lot more depth. I've loved seeing the growth of Hunter. Wrecker has a really soft spot in my heart, and I'm scared, Gabe.
Yeah,
I'm very scared, Gabe.
Yeah, the storytelling philosophy with this show has been really interesting, to where, as you said, it is pretty much adventure of the week, but there is a really strong consistency to the way that the themes and character arcs are played out. Like, every single episode is referencing the thing that happened in the episode before. Like, there's like these very clear steps. So like, it's kind of taking best of both worlds of the adventure of the week and the serialized character arcs and putting them together in a really interesting and engaging way. Yeah. So for me, like I as I said before, I've really enjoyed the show. It's not Rebels or Clone Wars level for me yet, but it's still been very consistently enjoyable and engaging, and I find the way the story is playing out to just, you can see they put a lot of thought and intelligence into mapping it out, just because of how consistent the little steps for characters are. So for this episode in particular, let's just get Trace and Rafa out of the way. So for me, I wasn't the biggest fan of them or their arc. Like, I think it's an important step for Ahsoka. Like, I get what they're doing. I just thought like some of the writing for the characters wasn't that great, and just very, very long.
Very long.
And so when they first showed up, I was like, okay, cool, that person I know. Oh yeah, I didn't really like them that much. How's it gonna go? And I thought they were really well used. Like, they didn't annoy me, which is great. And and I thought that the way they worked in just from the mercenary job angle to the larger, but even more importantly, the larger Star Wars story and the themes of Star Wars and the ideas that were happening in that arc. I thought just like that, all of that was just really well woven together and just very smart.
I agree, man. I think when that arc of the Clone Wars was happening, I was like, is this gonna be over soon? Like, I know what's coming next, and I just want to get there. And they spent 4 episodes telling us really what like an episode and a half could have told us. Mm-hmm. It was just very long. But I never hated the characters, though. I never got overly annoyed with them, other than when they made stupid mistakes, which is just character choices for me. I don't hate that. I didn't hate when Ahsoka did that early on in her life either.
An aside, I love that they've avoided doing that with Omega in this show. Like,
agreed, 100%. Yeah, 100%. But I really liked the use of Trace and Rafa in this episode. It made sense for them to be there. It made sense for them to be after that same thing, especially when we find out that they have a contact who they're, trying to get this information to. I thought that made a lot of sense, and I like seeing that they've kind of taken the side. It looks like they are kind of in the beginning stages of the rebellion kind of a thing. And I like seeing that they took that side. It makes a lot of sense for their characters. It shows that they've grown as well. I thought they had a great rapport with the crew. I like it, dude. I thought they were great in it.
Yeah, that whole antagonist, but oh no, this is a greater threat, so we got to work together, but we'll also try to pull one over on the other person the first chance we get. Like, it was really fun, and the setting of the melting factory and all of that. Just factories are such a great location for action sequences. Just all the levels, and you can jump to this, and there's conveyor belts, and there's giant pits of lava. Like, just the way it's a tiny location. Like, we spend like 15 minutes there. But just the way they use the setting and the characters bouncing off each other, I found it really fun and engaging throughout. So we're back to Corellia. That was really cool. We were seeing, I was recognizing some of the designs from Solo. Just that always makes me happy.
Yeah.
And just the world, from a world building perspective, you have the decommissioning site, which, like, you've got millions of battle droids lying around. You got it. And since they're at Corellia, which is a shipbuilding planet, like, are they going to be future Star Destroyers or something?
I don't know, man. Yeah. I do love, I think you hit on something big there, though. I love the world building. I think that's one of the things this show is really doing great is the world building. And I think generally Dave Filoni is just really great at that. Like, everything that he's had his hands in so far has done such a good job with that. And I think the Bad Batch, like you said, it's not like, I don't think it's up there with the Clone Wars or Rebels just yet, but I mean, neither one of those shows were good at, like, well, not great at the beginning. I thought Rebels was actually stronger at its very beginning than Clone Wars was, but personally.
And by now, both of those shows had a couple dud episodes, which Bad Batch has not had so far.
No duds.
And another great bit of world building is, like, the tactical droids. We need, like, now that clones are the Imperial troops, there's a market for ways for, the common people to defeat them. So now that's just, I never thought about that, but and there was I was thinking, like, are they going to explore, like, the morality of the Bad Batch working as their fellow clones? That isn't really touched, but then again, if you remember, they were always very much outsiders, where, like, they call it the regular clones, they're regs, and the clones call them, they're defective. So I guess there's not a lot of a love lost between them.
No, I mean, even in remember in the first episode, Tech asks, he's like, I can't remember the exact line, but he was like, let's find out, let's ask somebody or whatever what's going on. And he asks, and the clone is like, move aside or whatever. And he's like, oh, seemed about the same to me. Like, they've never been a part of the crew.
Speaking of Tech, there was a gag I really loved when Sid's giving them the job. He's like, so I assume you know what a tactical droid is, and he's like, holding it back, and he has to jump in. Like, yes, I do know.
I love that. I thought there were a couple of really great of really great gags. I don't want to jump around too much, so we'll cover it. I'm sure we'll cover it later, but I really like the tech one. He really seems that it was really funny because I guess in that moment, Sid was kind of doing for the episode what Tech usually does, like the exposition, and Tech wanted to come in and do his exposition, and he couldn't do it.
This is my briefing, Goggles.
So good.
Allow me to decide for you. You're in. I was hoping she'd become a recurring character, and I really like what she's doing so far.
Same.
Let's see. So yeah, they go on the mission, and obviously we meet Trace and Rafa, and it's mostly a lot of back and forth, a lot of action. So there's not a whole lot specifically to talk about. But there are just some great little moments and some scary moments. So Wrecker bangs his head again. And am I a terrible person because I laughed out loud?
Yes, you're terrible.
It's becoming a real, like, yes, it's genuinely terrifying, the thought of Wrecker, giving into the Order 66 programming, but I don't know, the way he reacts to Penguin is kind of funny.
Dude, he hits his head like every episode, I swear.
And like, yeah, they've had that. They've been slow burning the headache thing, and they finally actually had the good soldiers.
Oh my god!
And it's coming, and I'm not ready. And just don't hurt Omega.
Dude, I'm so not ready for this. Wrecker has taken a surprisingly large place in my heart. I love him so much. I loved him in the Clone Wars when he's bench pressing a gonk droid.
I love to continue that gag. Yeah,
he's done it multiple times this season already. I love it so much. But like, I'd always just thought he was ridiculous fun. But like, now he's Uncle Wrecker, and now he's like, he will consistently conquer his, he'll set aside his fear of heights repeatedly for the people that he loves, because he knows he's got a job to do, and if he doesn't, everyone's screwed. So he consistently does that. I love that.
And I like that they didn't even make a big deal of it. If you've seen The Bad Batch, you remember, oh yeah, he's scared of heights. And so it's there, but they don't like stop. Oh yes. Like, they don't have text saying, oh yes, Wrecker must overcome his fear of heights or something.
That would have been actually really funny.
Yeah. And I think maybe the best joke so far in this show is, where Trace is like, we need a diversion. Raph's like, we need a diversion. Is there an echo in here? Yes.
Yes.
I laughed out loud both times. Like, I watched this episode.
I did too.
And it's like they start with one classic joke that they're repeating, and then they go to another classic joke with it. It was so good.
That was the other gag that I was talking about. I laughed. I did too. I watched it twice. I laughed both times out loud. It is, I don't know why that was so funny for me. Yeah, I agree. It was great. It was really great.
Yeah. And so they program all the droids, and I love hearing Matthew Wood. Like, the journey I've gone on from like hating the droids back when I first started watching, the Clone Wars, to now every time I see them in Rebels or Resistance, like, oh, come on, I want to give you a hug. It's so sweet. Yep.
Yeah, I agree, dude. That was one of the things when I first started watching the Clone Wars. I was like, why why are they doing this? It's even worse than in the prequels or whatever. But eventually I don't know if it's just like the writing for them has gotten better. I feel like their jokes are funnier than they used to be, or maybe it's just me, like maybe I just like them now. I can't really tell.
Nostalgia is a powerful drug.
It really is.
And Omega's got some great stuff in this episode. I thought the bow was really cool from the previous episode, but actually seeing the inner workings of how it like folds out when you pull it, and the sound design, and the way her little her noodle arms, according to Sid, the way they're like quivering, like you feel the power in the sound design and the shaking, and like it's a really cool looking design, and just everything about it. I want to see her use that more.
Yeah, I thought about it today when I was watching. I was like, I thought we were kind of like, I don't know, at some point you'd think Star Wars would run out of cool weapon ideas, but like we've never had this really cool bow and arrow idea in Star Wars, and I love that we're getting to kind of see something so different.
Yeah, the Night Sisters have a kind of an energy bow thing going, but the way
That's right.
the way this one kind of like collapses and folds out like one of the I guess one of the energy guns from like Halo 5 or something.
Oh
Is
yeah.
really cool. And I love the way Echo is training her. Where he's like I hit it 3 times, like yeah, out of 12. That's not skill, that's luck. And he's just such a great mentor. Like good job. Now do it 20 more times. Like he's kind and encouraging, but he won't take any excuses. Like it's a really sweet thing to see.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I like what they're doing with Echo for the past couple of weeks. I feel like they've given him some more to do, and I thought by far Echo was the most interesting and emotionally resonant part of the Clone Wars arc with them in it, and him joining the crew. I loved it so much, and so seeing him, I really like seeing he's definitely more like a traditional clone because he is a reg, and so seeing him train Omega, like I imagine probably the others didn't have to quite train as much because they are special. They're specially made in these, for these gifts. But like to see Echo being the one to train Omega with the bow and arrow, and I really kind of related to him too as a music teacher. It's like when she was like, I hit it 3 times. He was like, out of 12. That's luck. It's about consistency. I basically have said that before in lessons, essentially. So I really related to Echo for that. I love Echo so much. It's great.
And Omega continues to be adorable. Like her little standoff with Rafa is like, don't just stand there, grab a weapon. I had one. Or
she brought the sass this week, dude.
Yeah,
she really did.
There's a second person after the tactical droid, but don't worry, I'm in pursuit. She's just so cute.
Yeah, I agree. I'm so glad, like you said, I'm so glad they had avoided that trope of making the kid annoying at the beginning. I think Ahsoka had a reason. I think Dave did a good job of writing her because she was annoying for a reason. It showed a lot of growth throughout the entire show, but you don't have to do that with every kid character. And I'm glad that Omega is just like, she's naive, but she's also like very intelligent and also very brave. And I think we've seen all of that in the show so far.
Yeah, we get our like very own Toy Story 3 ending type thing happening, and
so glad you said that.
I have a phobia of being burned alive in molten steel, so like it doesn't take a lot to get me nervous in this kind of circumstance.
Dude, it really was like Toy Story 3. That's a great call.
Yeah. So that's, I think the big thing I want to talk about this episode is I love that this, just having Trace and Rafa come in and the way they come in is building up the legacy of Ahsoka, and the way in that arc in the Clone Wars season 7, where she was doing a lot of soul searching and kind of going on this journey of self-discovery. Like she didn't know what she was doing, but even then she's influencing these other people and to become, better. And just seeing Rafa now telling off Hunter, like, you took a job and you didn't know where the thing was going. What's wrong with you? After where she was in, when we met her, it's like, it's really rich, but it's good. Like we see like these, and it reminds me of the quote from Lord of the Rings. I think it's from Gandalf, at least in the Hobbit movies, it's from Gandalf. Maybe I don't remember who says it in the books, but I find it's the small acts of courage and kindness that keep the darkness at bay. And like that, like this one little step in Ahsoka's journey changed the lives of these two sisters, who are now passing that on to the Bad Batch, and making them think, like, what are we doing when we're being mercenaries? Like, are we making the world better? Are we making it worse? Like, they're having to think about their impact on the world in the way they never did, because things were clear when we were just soldiers. They pointed us, we did it, but now we have to make the choices. And now we also have to think about, how are these choices going to affect the world? Are we going to make it better? Are we going to make it worse? Are we going to hurt people? And which is something I've been thinking about, because like in the episode Cornered, where they just scam the shopkeeper, like, you just stole a lot of money from, like, and you kind of like I've been wondering, like, is this show gonna reckon with their impact and the things they do and the choices they make? And I'm glad that it's being, I think, more thoughtful than a lot of like these shows where you have, oh, it's fun mercenary stuff, and yes, we're doing terrible things and hurting people, but hey, isn't it cool? Like, this show is really reckoning with that. But bigger than that, I love just the intertextuality of the way the Star Wars universe works, where this one action in a different show from a different character is now affecting these characters. It reminded me of in The Rise of Skywalker, where Rey, she heals the Sand Snake, and BB-8 sees that, and then he powers up Dio, and then Rey gives him the oil, and that leads to Dio giving them the information they need. Like, it's just the tiny acts of kindness that have these huge ramifications that you never would think about or expect. It's like, it's the Bad Batch, but they're playing into the themes and ideas that are all of Star Wars. I love, this is what like franchise storytelling can do, to where like every little piece is, it might seem insignificant, but it's building up just the entire philosophy of what Star Wars is and what it means. Like, every little piece is important in this kind of franchise storytelling. I just love that.
Dude, I love that point. That's such a great point. And I mean, if you look at it, like the big theme I took away from this episode was choice. There were multiple points at it during the show where it was they're going out of their way to show us that that this group of clones, they're used to just following orders and doing what they're told, and it's very clear what they're supposed to do because they were told to. Even at the very beginning with Sid, she was like, yeah, I know, because I just told you to do it. And then, like, I mean, I have written down several things. Wrecker having his chip slowly being, activated. His kind of ability to have choice is being taken away very slowly. And it's like breaking my heart. And Rafa saying, in the end, we all choose sides. Hunter choosing to give the information to Trace and Rafa rather than following their own directive and keeping it. The Clanker saying orders are orders, and like all of these, there's so many just things that they're just kind of throwing in there. And like you said, Hunter was like, to be honest, things were clearer when we were just soldiers. And I love seeing them wrestle with, like, we have choices to make. Our choices affect those around us, and now we have, by the way, a kid with us, and our choices definitely affect her and where she's going. And I'm very curious to see where they're taking this show. I feel like I keep having this, I could be wrong at the end of the show, I don't know, but I keep having this sense of, when I'm watching it, I have this sinking feeling that these are the fun episodes of the show. And I just feel like we're in for some super dark stuff coming up, and I just don't know how ready for it I am, man.
Yeah, the end of this episode seems to be hinting at major developments. So that's a good time to talk about that. Who do you think she called?
So I thought it was, the easy answer would be Ahsoka at first, but when I rewatched it, I realized that she says, patch him through. And I don't know if that's just I don't know, maybe I misheard it, but I definitely heard patch him through. And so that kind of leaves me to think it's either a Bail Organa could be. I know he's very involved with the beginning of the rebellion, or Rex. I think they kind of built it in a way that makes you question, like, is she like ratting them out to somebody, or is she just telling someone who would be interested genuinely? And I think Rex makes a ton of sense for that. And we know he's coming up at some point. We've seen him in the trailer. And so,
we have?
Oh yeah, dude, there's totally Rex in the trailer.
Oh, I missed that.
Whoopsie, sorry.
Well, no. Well, I mean, I've assumed he was coming back because they kind of teased him in Cut and Run.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I also thought Ahsoka at first, but like, according to the book, Ahsoka, I think she lays low for a couple of years.
We've seen what they do with that stuff.
Yeah. I like when they. Like, I so far it's been some pretty minor changes, but I feel like that was a big part of her journey as a character. So like, I kind of hope they don't retcon all of that. But yeah, then you said it's a he. There's obviously Bail Organa. He pretty much created the Rebel Alliance.
Right.
or Rex. One thing that I didn't notice it, but they pointed it out on the Force Center podcast, where the droid, the little protocol droid R7, that I think was Ahsoka's droid, and it was with her. It was with her and Rex in the end of the Clone Wars season 7. It got shot and destroyed. However, at the end, when they're standing in front of all the clone graves, they have him, like, all the pieces of him piled up under the wing of the Y-wing they flew down, like they gathered him together and they're bringing him along. So that would kind of lean toward the Rex thing. Like, he rebuilt him, and him and Trace and Raph are working together.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Man, only the Force Center guy would notice that. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, they did make a big deal of the droid. Like when they come in, he's like in the foreground. They pat him, like, so it's like, who's that droid? Do we know him? But yeah, like piecing it back to that pile of scrap metal at the end. Yeah. So it's.
I wish I was that observant.
Me too. Like I'm thinking about story and stuff. I can't pay attention to. But can't pay attention to all that. Yeah, so that was a Decommissioned. Anything else you want to mention before we close out?
I think as the big thing I really wanted to talk about was that theme of choice. I think that's like that is the biggest thing. I think there's been an element of that in each episode so far, if I go back and think about it. And I love, and I just, as to close out or whatever, I'm really loving that I feel like each episode, even though it's, we're going on a separate adventure each week and we're kind of doing a adventure of the week type of a feel, there is quite like a lot more to pull out of each episode, like thematically, than I really imagined there would be in a show like this. And I'm just like, at first when we, started watching the show, with the podcast, I was like, I don't know if we're going to do weekly episodes of this, just because I don't know how long I want to be. I don't know how long I want to be having to do the Bad Batch episodes. I don't know if there's going to be all that much to pull from them, but like, we're about to start doing weekly episodes of the Bad Batch review, because I just feel like there's so much to glean from it. And I'm just loving it. I'm loving it so much. It's just tuning in on a Friday, every Friday, and just being like, what adventure are we going to do today? What are we going for? And I just, I have that same feeling with The Mandalorian. Although in general, I think I tune in quicker for The Mandalorian.
Yeah, this is one of those shows, like, you could watch it just as, it's fun Star Wars stuff. But I think, like, if you want to put like thought into it and like examine what's happening, there's a lot to glean from it. And so you want to tell us real quick about your show and where we can find it online?
Yeah, you can. So it's called A Certain Point of View Podcast. You can listen to it anywhere you listen to podcast. And we're on Twitter at certain_POV pod. We're on Instagram at certain point of view pod. And we have a Facebook group as well. It's just go and search a certain point of view discussion group on Facebook, and you'll find us there. It's just a positive. It's a positive Star Wars group, not much different than the Outer Rim, except for we're a lot smaller.
Yeah. You can join us over in the Outer Rim, a Star Wars group on Facebook. Pretty much the same as he said. He was dedicated to positive, constructive Star Wars discussion, but we're better. Also, you can listen to the audio versions at my podcast, Franchise Fatigue, and obviously, like this video, subscribe to the channel, all that stuff. And we will see you next week with episode 7. See you then.